welcome to our show. This is The Phantom Myth with your host Priscilla Phantom and my intern Harvey. We are brought to you by WWT radio station here on this strange little isle. To begin this show, I will tell you I do have an update on Arthur Smith, the man who used to stand in Belladonna Park, warning us all that the end is nigh. Himself and Amelia Sparrow, a young intern at the Gage and Battle law firm, have created a group for people who believe in or are open to the belief of the supernatural or the eldritch. It seems to become something of a success. I visited one of the meetings for research, of course, and I saw a lot of familiar faces. I mean, it does help that everybody knows everybody in this island. Nonetheless, it was nice to see so many faces, including my Aunt Carol. If you have been listening to the show, or if you've read the paper, or know of me and my family, you are likely to have heard that my brother and I are searching for answers pertaining to my mother's problems. I have had a little bit of news around that topic, which I will get round to at the end of this broadcast. For this show, I have something a little bit different. Instead of reading out a letter, I will be reading extracts from the diary of Guy Swindler. If the name sounds familiar, it's likely you learned about him in school, or you may recognize the name from the Swindler's cottage out on the edge of the woods. His father built that cottage before he was born, and after he died, it was left to the elements. This does feel a little invasive, but his diary provides a lot of historical intrigue, partly because it is so strange. This man was certainly suffering from, well, that's up for debate, depending on whether or not you believe in the supernatural. The first one takes place on the 9th of September, 1892, when Guy Swindler was only 8 years old, and his brother, John, would have been 5. Here goes. Dear Diary, me and Dad and John went fishing today. Dad showed me how to thread a bait. I caught a bass, and Dad caught a bass and some cod. John didn't catch anything and almost fell off the rocks into the sea, but Dad saved him. He's so clumsy. I told him to just sit down, but he likes looking in the rock pools. I guess they are kind of interesting. I didn't get to see some limit, and even a starfish. I think he means limpet. That's a type of mollusk. We went home and my mum cooked the cod for supper. It made the house smell. After dinner, we sat by the fire and Dad taught me a new word and told me how to spell it. Restless. I like this word, as it is a mix between the words res and the word less. I already know how to spell both of these words. It means not being able to relax or rest. Restless. I asked why my dad was taught to spell and Mum wasn't. Mum told me that the school did not think women needed to learn such things. I asked why. She said she didn't know. Then she told me and John a story about a little boy who made a wish in a wishing well. She said he became rich and he made loads of money, but he was mean to all his friends. And then, because he was mean, when he died, the devil took him to hell. If I ever become rich, I would share it, so I do not become mean and the devil does not take me to hell. The next entry I want to read was written on the 23rd of October, 1894. It's just over 2 years after the last. Guy would have been 10 and John was 8. Dear Diary, I don't know what to do. I was playing in the woods with John. We were playing hide and seek, and I told him to go hide, but I never looked for him. I went and played on the swing instead. I thought he'd be fine. I thought he'd give up and come and find me. I don't know what to do. Mum and Dad are going to be so angry with me, and I miss John. He is so annoying. I just wanted to get rid of him for a while. Now I miss him. I wish I could find him. But I've searched for hours and I found no trace of him. Maybe I should make a wish. Mum tells me not to. She said the well is cursed. She keeps saying that wishes made through it only end badly. But I don't know what to do. It cannot be that bad, can it? I need to find him. I lost my little brother. I lost John. There is another short entry from later that day. Dear Diary, I dropped Percy, my bear, in the well and wished for John to come back. Before my parents got home, I heard a knock on the door. It sounded weird. I thought maybe it came from somewhere else, but I opened the door anyway, and John was standing there. I hugged him and told him I missed him and that I was sorry, but he just stood there. Maybe he was angry at me. I asked him to come in, and he did. He sat down on the floor by the fire and didn't say a word. I think there's something wrong with him. I'm so stupid. I should never have left him alone in the woods. Mum and Dad came home, and we ate bread with some jam that Mum had made from blackberries in the garden. John turned his nose up at it and didn't eat a bite. I'm worried about John. The last entry from Guy came just over 5 years later, on the 5th of January 1900. Guy would have been 15 and his brother, if that was indeed his brother, would be 13. Dear Diary, I'll be 16 next month. If Mother or Father were here, I imagine they would tell me that I'm a young man now, and it is about time I find myself a wife. That's what William says his parents say to him. But my parents are not here, are they? Every day I sit in this house, terrified that I will be next. He still looks like my brother, or at least how I remember my brother looking. This child, he never ages, he never grows sick, never eats or sleeps, and he never smiles or laughs or cries or feels. He sits by the fire now, gazing into it like he can see something I cannot. This is not my brother. I know this to be true. I have always known this to be true, yet I cannot send him away. I cannot abandon him. He may or may not have killed my parents. He may or may not have killed my real brother. Heck, he may kill me. The real John Swindler. He died when we were but children. I have made my peace with that fact. But this shell, he's all I have left. He is all the family that I have. It's been 5 years, and not a moment of this shows on his face. Just the boy, except for his eyes. When I saw him, I thought that look behind his eyes was distance, and I was right. Endless distance. There's an emptiness. Sometimes I wonder, if I were to cut him open, would he have organs? Blood? Does he have a heart? And if so, does it beat? Or would I find nothing? An empty shell? Or something else? I shudder to contemplate such a matter. I watch him when he does not know I am there. He does not play like other children. He rarely speaks, and when he does, he says little. He has never left the woods, the land of this cottage sits on. Not since he came back, at least. When he thinks himself alone, he moves differently, jerky and limp. Sometimes I think I can see strings pulling at his limbs, like one of those marionettes I saw in the circus that came to the island when I was a child. If he did kill my parents, or my real brother, I wonder, why has he not killed me? Does he see me as family? No, that doesn't seem likely. Is it just that I have not gotten in his way, or does he need me? Is it that the people in the town have become suspicious of him and he needs me to protect him? Or is it because I wished for him to be here? Is his presence tied to my own? I do not know. I am so fearful. Every day I live in terror. How could I not be? I live with a hollow stranger who masquerades as a child. What have I brought to this island? What have I done? After that, the pages are empty, except for the last page where somebody has written something. The handwriting looks pretty different to Guy Swindler's. in large, scrawling letters, somebody has written, "I am with my brother now." I don't know what to tell you about this. I imagine it was a hoax, a joke, made by whoever found this diary. Maybe even his brother. Although this is Guy Swindler's last recorded diary entry, I do have one more passage I would like to read. This comes from William Winters, a school friend of Guy Swindler. This entry was written on the 30th of March 1914, 14 years after Guy's last diary entry. I met with an old friend of mine today. As it happens that our paths crossed. Something to be expected from living in such a community as ours. So, Peter told me the other day that he thinks of expanding the farm. I asked him where. Most of the island has houses built on it. He tells me he wants to buy up the land right on the edge of the woods. But that's Mr. Swindler's land, I say to him. Maybe he's willing to sell up, he says back to me. So we got talking about Guy Swindler, and I tells him that when we went to school together, we was actually friends for a time. Guy was smart, had so much promise when he was young. People say he was never the same after what happened to his parents. I say something changed before them. His brother stopped coming to school. We would rarely see him around. Then Guy grew more distant and started talking all proper, like he'd grown up with wealth or something. I think he did it to try and put even more distance between himself and the world. Then his parents died, and that just made him retreat further. I last heard he was a recluse, living with his brother in that little cottage. So Peter asks me to come and see him, see if Mr. Swindler wanted to sell the land. I think Peter has heard some of the stories about Guy Swindler and wants someone to back him up. I think he asked me, as I can talk to Guy as an old friend. But if any of the stories turns out to be true, well, I'll till and plough the fields with the mare all day, so I look every bit as strong as I am. I says yes, I might as well. I hadn't seen Guy in years, and it seems like a nice change of pace. When we got there, though, something was wrong. I saw a boy sitting by the well. I wondered if Guy had a child out of wedlock. Maybe that's why we rarely saw him. He wanted to keep the child a secret, fear for judgment. But then the boy turned, and I saw his face. It was John Swindler, his little brother, the only man on this island more recluse than Guy himself. But John was not a man, and I don't claim to know my times tables off by heart, but that was a child. It had been at least 10 years since I seen John last, and he looked the same that day as this. I said nothing to Peter, for fear he might think me stupid. What I was thinking was not possible. I know it, but that boy must not be John. There's only one explanation. Family resemblance is all it is. So, Peter goes and knocks on the door. The door creaks open. From the darkness, I hear a voice. It sounds raspy, but familiar.
Who is it?
Guy, I calls to him.
Yes.
He asks back and sinks out of the darkness. When we saw Guy's face, I think both Peter and myself knew that coming here was a bad idea. He looked younger than he should be, and older. A man possessed by the devil himself. Guy? It's me, William. Do you remember me? I asks him. He laughs. It was a horrid noise, one that I hope I'll never hear for as long as I live.
Another lost soul walks to my door,
he says. Then seems to notice Peter and he says,
Oh, and you have brought another. Why are you here?
Peter steps forward and held out his hand for Guy. Guy did not shake his hand. Peter says, I'm interested in buying your land. Would you be interested in making a deal? Guy invites us in, and Peter and me look over each other, and I can tell that he does not want to. Peter told Guy that he doesn't have time, but if he's interested, he would return with a solicitor. Guy told Peter that he was very interested and that he should return. I was just glad to get out of there. Guy does not show up in any surviving documents since. We can't even find a record of his or his brother's death. William Winters, however, joined the army soon after the First World War started. He died only a couple of months after he signed up. We don't know what happened to Guy Swindler. Some people believe he brought monsters to our island. Some believe he still resides in that old cottage. Others believe he was simply a deluded man who shot himself away after the death of his parents. Whatever you believe, it seems that nobody was ever willing to move back into Swindler's cottage, and that place was left to rot. Now it is only a ruin standing at the edge of the woods. Now, at the start of this show, I promised you that I would share what I have learned about my family. Now, I have noticed something strange. Me, my brother, and my mother all have the last name Phantom. But my mother was never married, and neither was my Aunt Carol. But Aunt Carol and my grandparents have the last name Lockwood. Now, my mother told me she changed her name on a whim, and I assume that she chose Phantom at random. However, I have been looking through old family trees, and I found one with the last name Phantom. This can't be a coincidence, but maybe my mother was reading through this book and liked the name. When I was reading through, I saw a name that looked familiar. Richard and Marie Phantom had 2 children, Robert and Patience. Patience Phantom was born in 1638 and died in 1663 at the age of 25. I flicked through the book, and it did mention that she was burnt at the stake. Listeners, if you heard me read out the letter from Edith Horn, or Triggs, as she calls herself, you may realize why this distresses me. Edith, she read through my family tree, if we are presuming that this is part of my family. So Trix knew my lineage. Is she stalking me? Does she think my family is special? That I am special? I am not. I am not special. I can't see monsters. And do you know why? Because monsters don't exist. They can't exist, and they have no right existing. I am not special. The family tree just stopped at the 1920s. I guess it was just never updated. So I don't know if there are any surviving heirs or if they are connected to the Lockwood family tree. I don't know why my mother chose this name, Phantom. It's starting to sound alien to me now. There are no monsters in the dark, no ghosts or ghouls. Please remember that. And please stay safe. Sleep well, dear listeners.
La 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 la. The voice of Priscilla Phantom is Lyndsey Evans. The Phantom Myth was written, edited, and produced by Sasha K. Williams. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Just a friendly reminder that when you walk past your reflection, you should always make sure the mirror image is just that. Did it just smile? Did its eyes just darken? Probably not. I'm sure you're fine. Have a lovely day.